6 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. Looks like we've got Judy Kerr and we've got Lonnie Taylor absent. But we've got enough for a quorum, so we will continue on. Rosalie's passed out minutes from the February meeting. Give you a moment to review those. Motion, and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? It passed. All right, so moving on. Mr. Gregory, you're up.
No, we're almost to the finish line. This is almost complete. I have questions is the reason that I made copies with those with.
Yes.
Yeah, but no, the other heavy dark one.
This one?
Yeah, that one.
Middle one then. That's it.
I've got questions. I mean, I've got everything on the use matrix that we've talked about. And I fit it in as well as I could, but I have questions about how it all fits together and how you want it to be, how you want it to be shown moving forward. And the reason is, let's start with bed and breakfast. Bed and breakfast homestay is called out specifically in the C1 district in town in Parksville as permitted use. I don't have access to resolution 99-1 that was approved back in January of 99 that added bed and breakfast to the intermediate impact category.
Can you repeat that ordinance number and I'll probably look that up.
99-1, resolution 99-1. January 25 of 99. And I don't know how it was added in. The only place in either jurisdiction that permitted bed and breakfast homestay use directly was the C1 district in town. But in 99, it was added to intermediate impact category. So I don't know what that involves. And intermediate impact is shown if you look on the table. It is a special exception in ag R1 and R2 in the county, permitted in M2, special exception in R1, R2, and R3 in the city. And special exception in ag in the city. So if it's a part of bed and breakfast, I mean, intermediate impact, that one line can come out of the matrix because it's also a part of the category that's allowed in all those other zoning districts, if that makes sense. It's called out specifically as a permitted use in C1 in town.
Mm-hmm.
But in 99, it was added to intermediate impact that's allowed in about 8 categories. So it's redundant to have it called out separately as a permitted use when it shows in other districts as either a special exception or a permitted use. So I didn't know how to handle that. I've got it both ways, but it's redundant and it doesn't really need to be there.
I'll look that up and get that resolution to you.
Okay.
And then, but if the resolution puts it in intermediate impact, then it's an intermediate impact.
Exactly.
And yeah, there's no reason to list it separately. But that makes complete sense.
But I don't know what the language says.
Yeah.
It may be limited or something. There may be some qualifiers in there.
Do we have intermediate impact in the urban district?
Sure,
So it's under the community facilities activities, the intermediate impact.
no, it's just a category there in the middle of the page.
Public parks and recreation?
No, ma'am. Intermediate impact is in the column on the left. And then all the districts that's allowed in our part special exception is in the row following.
Can you point out intermediate? Okay.
There.
Okay.
So yeah, it looks, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this whole process is this isn't the only thing we found that's been redundant and. Yeah,
I've got several.
and this is just part of the cleaning up that we're just trying to do.
That's right.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's a bunch of S's and then there's one.
Special
P,
exception.
special exception,
Mhm.
and then one P.
Permitted.
So special exception means if someone wanted to do it in those areas, they would have to come and ask.
To the appeals board, to the board of zoning appeals, yes. P says it's a permitted use in that district, and they don't have to ask, it's just permitted by right.
So why is it not permitted at all in what is TC one and TM
That'd
one?
be the county, be Trousdale County one.
And Hartsville HC one and HC two?
Well, yeah, HC would be Hartsville Commercial, HR is Hartsville Residential.
This has never been allowed. I mean, all this matrix is doing is representing what was in the old ordinances,
Because we're not trying to change anything, we're just trying to clean up what's here.
And HA one is,
agricultural, in the city.
So T is for the county, H is for the city, and then it's whatever zone. A, R, or C, or I, or, and this would be M for, you know.
And next, I have a question about group homes.
Okay.
And if you will look on this page, it looks like it's heavily redacted.
Yeah,
I tried to highlight what the state says about group homes. And Hartsville, Trousdale counties, if I read this correctly, a group home for handicap is a permitted use in C1 and C2 in town and R2 in the county. No, I'm sorry. It's permitted in, I'm a line off. It's permitted in R1, R2, R3, C1, C2 in the city, but nowhere in the county. But state says it's the purpose of this part to remove any zoning obstacles which prevent persons with a disability from living in normal residential surroundings. For the purposes of any zoning law in Tennessee, classification single-family residence includes any home in which 8 or fewer unrelated persons with disabilities reside and may include 3 additional persons acting as support staff. So this takes precedence.
yes,
What my question is, it's shown throughout the ordinance as a permitted use in the different districts. This says it doesn't matter. This says that if you have a single family provision, that group homes for mentally and physically handicapped are permitted.
gotcha.
If there's a question, you can cite this, and this says they can be there. They don't have to ask. Any single family zoning classification, they can be there. And if you look across the top, A1, R1, R2 in the county, and 5 of the 7 in the city all permit single family housing. So it's permitted in all of those, anywhere single family zone is allowed. Handicapped citizen group housing is allowed. So my question is, why do we need that group housing classification in the matrix?
at all, because state law says it can be anywhere.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
And it can cause problems if someone sees it there and says, well, why did you allow it over here? It doesn't say that.
Yeah.
Then you gotta go back to this.
Could we update our definitions?
No. No, this says,
With the,
this says it doesn't matter.
okay, I know, but just for, because a lot of people will call the office and they'll want our zoning ordinances and they want to know the definitions on what's allowed. So if they're looking for group homes, you know, they can see in the definition that it's allowed where single family residences are allowed, and they'll be able to make that transition. Well, I know that it's not gonna be allowed in a manufacturing one or manufacturing.
Right, it's only where single family is allowed.
And that's a group home with a disability, it's not a group home for like. foster care.
The state laws only talk.
Says disability.
Yeah,
It
it's
does
for
say-
Says disability,
eight or fewer.
It does say with disabilities, very
with
specific.
a disability, yeah.
So that then separates group home from, well, as she's saying, one type of group home versus another.
Right, if you read down at the bottom, it specifically exempts commercially operated
Mhm.
housing. So that's not a consideration. So it's only eight or fewer and has to be physically or mentally handicapped.
But not the serious mental illness where they could
Right,
be homicidal.
So yeah, I'd like to see this added to our definitions
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
and. Yeah.
that brings up the next question. We previously defined it as major and minor. And that's in conflict with this as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So my suggestion is to take out the provision in the matrix that identifies group home handicap, to eliminate that.
Yeah.
And to substitute the definition from statute here.
yeah, because that's I mean, that's where the definition would need to go.
That's right. And there doesn't need to be a distinction between major and minor because it gets confusing.
Yeah, because it says all.
Right.
Can I get a motion to do that?
Yes.
All right, do I have a second?
Yes.
So Muller gives the motion. Gregory seconds it. So that's, go ahead and that's what we'll do then. Well, hold on, all in favor? Any opposed? And that's what we'll do. And that discussion, when, if anyone looks at it and sees, hey, y'all changed something. Okay, here's why we changed it. State law said we had to.
Right. It doesn't matter if we change it or not.
Exactly.
So
That's part of the clarification
this
process.
is just recognizing what's already there. I had a question about public parks. There's a call in I-1
Yeah,
for public parks. That's the reason it's in the matrix, public parks and recreation facilities. But when I look back for that term, it doesn't appear in either ordinance. But there is a provision in cultural and recreation services for parks, playgrounds, etc. So again, my question is, do we need a distinction for public parks and recreation facilities if we already have provision for cultural recreation services that calls for parks and playgrounds?
what zone is that associated with that you're referencing,
Which
the cultural?
it's special exception in the county in A1, R1, R2. And special exception in the city in 4 permitted in C1 and C2.
And I like it being allowed in the county.
Sure. Sure. So, again, it's only called for as a permitted use specifically for public parks and recreation facilities in I1 in industrial in the county, which is odd.
yeah, because why would you want a bunch of kids running around in an industrial area?
Exactly. I mean, I can understand somebody
Great.
would have a
And,
park.
and that is where our park is.
Yep.
It's right beside an industrial zoning, but actually the park doesn't have a zone at all, does it? It is still, okay.
It is R1, so we would have to put a permitted up top
It
there.
is, it is.
Is it
Yeah, that green,
community?
If we can move it up there.
No, it's not there
It's
yet.
not.
It would have to move up.
And we need to do it.
but if you look here, public parks and recreational facilities, here it is, P permitted in I1 in Hartsville.
Yeah, but that's what he said.
But it's not up
I
under
want to say that's redundant. Leave
It
it
is.
here.
The cultural recreation
Mhm.
purposes.
Yeah, we'll have to move it up there and then get rid of the bottom line.
Well, then you just put a P up there
Okay. And take it out at the matrix.
and then take it out, yeah, as its own separate.
Very good. Next, do I have adult oriented establishments in the right place? I show them in M1 in the county.
Correct.
That's the only place. Okay.
Tell me again, what is M1?
Oh,
Heavy
manufacturing.
industrial.
So it's the big side of that.
That's
But
the only place,
nowhere else, that's not a factory.
that's the only place it can be, yes, ma'am.
So it can move out to,
It has to be allowed somewhere. And that is what the county commission agreed that that was the best place to put it.
sounds good. It was smart thinking, actually, I think.
Planning had been working on that for a while.
You know where that is?
Where,
Power company.
where?
Power company.
Yeah, it's on a place.
And a couple
Well,
of
we're
places,
back to the
out by-
convenience center.
there's still a couple of M1s over by, the river.
Actually, it's. Okay.
Have they all changed over to agricultural now? I know we did several rezonings through there, but
It's not. And one.
there were M1 zonings out, off a cemetery back towards,
Yeah, they were Doctor, the dentist used to live.
yeah. Cause we
I can't think of his
rezoned,
name at the moment.
we rezoned 3 or 4, I can't remember the name of the road now. Mark, do you know that road, off of, Cemetery that goes on back to
Herod Lane,
Harriet, okay. There's a,
It's all light purple, which is not good, so.
we rezoned several to agricultural because, but there used to be a whole M1. And that farm, part of it is still.
Way down there
M1.
when they were building, they put that area right there.
Does Ms. Harrod still own
one
it?
time they were looking at a sewer plant
Yeah,
on it.
It'd be great. to
Long time
do
ago.
that. It'd be the perfect place to put a strip joint out there, so if we could talk to the
Adult
owner
entertainment.
and get it
cause it
there.
could be, it could be a establishment like that, but it could also be, adult bookstore, and it's an adult services. Cause they all fall underneath First Amendment right, so you have to put a zoning for them.
So the Miss Carnahan still owned that land out there, it was Carnahan.
Carnahan's on some of it, but Dr. Miller's family
Miller,
owns the farm at the end.
Yeah,
His son owns that.
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Doctor Miller.
Miss Carnahan would change it for sure.
But we had some of, because they broke up the little lots down through there and built houses on it, opposite of the river. And those people came in several years back and did rezonings so they could do refinancing and whatnot.
Yeah.
They didn't even know that, well, we didn't even know that they had been changed to M1. And they came in and they all got rezones. I think there's 3 or 4 of them that did.
Yeah.
But I was talking with Sam, previous to you taking over.
Uh-huh.
I was still under the impression that there were a couple of lots still that are listed as M1 down through there. So, but yeah, that and PowerCom are the only M1s that we have. Sorry for that tangent, Rick, go ahead.
Not a problem. Back up one to religious facilities.
Mhm.
If you look on the matrix. They're allowed, religious uses, religious facilities are allowed in every district. Except some are by special exception. And if you look at the other side of this handout with the redacted text on it and read it, the special exception provision has potential to cause problems. I highlighted a couple of places there. No government entity shall substantially burden a person's free exercise of religion unless it, the government, demonstrates that application of the burden to the person, being the church, is essential to further a compelling governmental interest and the least restrictive means of furthering that compelling governmental interest. So the burden is on the county to allow a religious use.
So we've
And-
got it backwards right now.
If it's there by special exception, and you got a room full of people that say, no, we don't want Episcopalians
Mhm.
on the corner.
Yeah.
This doesn't say Episcopalian, it doesn't say Baptist,
You know, it
Church of
doesn't say
Christ.
Christian or Jewish or
it says religion.
What about in that, I mean, the Christian Nazi.
witchcraft or
They got
anything. Yeah.
They're.
So my
that's what they're
question
going
is-
under.
The safe route is to change all of these to permitted.
Now, here is one thing that I would say. Just like in the city, you're not allowed to have a liquor store or, something like that within 100 feet of
This
the
doesn't
church.
change anything.
But what if a church wanted to start right next to an established liquor store?
They can do that. And the liquor store can continue. They're protected by grandfathering clause. 137208 says they can stay there.
That's why, I wanted to,
Yeah. No, church moving in doesn't change that,
gotcha.
but if the church is there, the liquor store would be recluded.
Okay,
So it's who gets there first in that instance.
gotcha.
But a church establishing inside that perimeter doesn't change the liquor store's ability to
I
be
mean,
there.
if a liquor store changes hands, then it couldn't be there.
Or, well, I don't know, if it
No.
changes hands.
If
I mean,
if it's already there, ownership doesn't matter. The
right,
business is
it
already
still
there.
has the
Okay.
established use, they have to get a new liquor license,
Okay.
but
So my suggestion is that all of these uses be changed to permitted instead of special exception.
Could I make a request? And because all the changes that we're making are changes, but each one of them is backed by state law.
Yeah.
That we make an asterisk or something showing that, okay, this wasn't a change made by committee. This was a change because of state law that is now in effect. Not necessarily for the finished document,
Okay,
but for as far as presentation to the full commission.
okay.
They need to know why we made those changes because,
like a footnote.
yeah, just some sort of footnotes,
Okay.
something there that, hey, this change was made because of state law, and then just
Just like the.
just state the
TCA thing.
TCA code for that change.
Good idea.
So I'm wanting this to be as clear cut as we are not changing. We are not, as a committee, putting any new legislation into our codes and zoning that is not upfront and on, above board. And any changes we do make, here's why we made the change.
Well, those are the two that caught my eye that are flying directly in the teeth of
Yeah,
existing law.
and it wouldn't surprise me if there aren't some others if we did some digging.
There can be. I didn't see any that are obvious, but there can be.
But then the fact that state law evolves and this, these two documents haven't evolved since
Right.
the nineties. I'm guessing there might still be a few more we run into.
This possible. It's possible. The other things I ran across, there are some uses, categories in the matrix on the left-hand column that only have one place in either zoning ordinance or zoning district, like commercial campgrounds are only called out in C1 in the county.
Mhm.
If that needs to change, we can change it, but that's the only place it shows now. And what I was gonna ask about specifically is the next one, incidental manufacturing that's permitted in C1 in town. In more than one place, it calls for accessory use. But that's the only place that incidental manufacturing is mentioned, and it's not defined. It only shows as a use listed in C1. And it goes on to explain what incidental manufacturing is in that application. But other districts also allow accessory uses where the principal use, say, is a widget store. And in the back room, if you want to make widgets that are sold through the front door, you can do that in C1 directly, but in other districts, you can do it also as an accessory use. So again, is there a need for a call out for incidental manufacturing when it's covered?
If it's
Other
already
places.
as a
Right.
incident, okay. Personally, that looks like just a housekeeping measure there.
It is.
Um. What do y'all think?
That makes sense. What was one you said before incidental?
Of the campgrounds?
Yeah. Where's that?
It's the one right above incidental manufacturing. It's only allowed as a special exception in C1 in the county. I'm not suggesting that change. I'm just saying that that's the only place I found it in either document.
I believe that is the only place with the one forward. Now, we are looking, planning has been discussing. And it's kind of fallen off lately, but there has been discussion about separating commercial campgrounds for RVs versus primitive campgrounds. And doing a separate, you're doing two different categories, but we haven't done anything with that, so.
If you do, that's just another line in the matrix.
Yeah, it would just split that off into two different instead of just
Yeah.
one combined.
Kind of like down below taverns where it's got hotel and motel.
Yeah.
Those could probably be the same, but it's broken out, so I
Yeah.
left it that way.
So what did we decide with incidental manufacturing then?
That's the question.
We still haven't gotten an answer on that. I'm asking the body, what are your thoughts? Everyone it's mentioned seems to be in favor of it, so.
Is it keeping it or doing what?
Doing away with it, because it's a repetitive, if it's already listed as. Secondary permitted secondary uses, well, special. Use in the other zonings.
Where do you see that?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
In
Accessory use is a use customarily incidental, appropriate, and subordinate to the principal use of land or buildings and located upon the same lot therewith. So again, if somebody's selling widgets out the front door and they've got a 3D printer in the back that they're making widgets, that's an accessory use in the retail district. I mean, if it's a factory, it's not an accessory use, it's principal use.
Yeah.
But if it's a retail use and they're making them in the back, it's already there.
and that's saying they're allowed,
Yes,
and that's state law?
no,
No, that's
That's
just what we have in our existing.
Okay.
The thing is, if we already have that existing, should it be listed in the matrix also?
Well, that's saying it can be anywhere in the county, and this only has it one place.
Exactly, then
Yeah,
that's the point.
even if you're in the county, you should, wherever you live, you should be able to do that.
So if I may ask a question. So, incidental manufacturing then, say Sunday is making pallets, is that a widget? Say,
if they're selling them out the front door,
or,
if they're selling at retail, that's all this is talking about. When they're talking about incidental manufacturing, and it's a wild guess what the definition of this is, because it's not defined. It's only a listed use in C1 as incidental manufacturing, so you have to guess what it means.
gotcha,
But my take is, if they're selling them out the front door in a commercial operation and they're making them in back,
Mhm.
that's an incidental manufacturing, but it's also an accessory use. So the call out for incidental manufacturing is redundant.
okay. Selling out the front door, so. Not necessarily a person's coming in to buy it, but they could take orders and. Send them on their way to a store or something like that, that's incidental.
Well, this says that it's gotta be in the same building and part of the same use. It's just subordinate to the principal use,
Gotcha,
which in a commercial operation is the sale of widgets.
okay,
So you can't make your widgets in the shed behind
Sure
the
you can.
house.
Sure you can, that's what this says.
Well,
That's the,
that's saying it's in the same building.
Yeah, in the same operation, on the same property,
Same
that's
property.
right.
Be certain, I guess, be like in balance.
and you have a pallet store.
Right,
You sell pallets.
Is there any,
Yeah, that, That just make, well,
So that would even cover like a major home occupation then, if somebody is doing something out there. Oh,
Well,
There's another provision for
major home,
home occupations, yeah.
gotcha.
but say you were doing gunsmithing out of your home and you had a little machine shop set up to do your tooling. That's an accessory use. It would also be the same as the incidental manufacturing at the same
Right.
time. So, yeah, to me, my understanding is the incidental manufacturing is just redundant and it just needs to be cleaned up.
And it's a bit confusing if it's only allowed in C1 and someone sees that,
Yeah,
where else can I do that?
Gotcha.
And then you get to the accessory use question, so why is it limited to one district if it's already there?
creating a conflict where there doesn't need to be.
That's right.
Just one more question about it. Is there anything anyone could make under this accessory use that could be harmful for their neighbors?
Potentially, sure. Sure, but the use itself is what controls, and the accessory use of manufacturing is just secondary to it. So if you're selling firearms and you have a federal license and you're in the back room rifling barrels, or you've got a lathe set up that's doing some minor work, then that's accessory to the principal use. But if you're manufacturing guns like they do in Gallatin for Beretta, that's different. That's the principal use. So it needs to be in a factory, in an industrial setting. So they're different. One is small scale and by definition subordinate to the principal use.
And the
you
use
should
of
have,
primary,
you can have a repair.
Yeah.
In the back room, you
Yeah.
can repair gun.
Exactly.
Well, you
the
know,
primary use is
repair.
already determined by the zoning anyway. And so
I just wanted us
Yeah.
to think about, is there anything?
because to me, the way this reads, it incidental manufacturing permitted in C1 means that you can have small scale manufacturing in a commercial, but not anywhere else.
And it's not defined.
Yeah,
There's nothing in here that limits what incidental manufacturing is.
so we either need to come up with a definition of incidental manufacturing, or we need to just move it completely out
I would take
and
it
put it
out.
under this.
I would take it out. Because it gives incidental manufacturing a place
Yeah.
in the
a permitted
ordinance
place.
that it doesn't deserve.
Yeah. Cause it allows at that point not to have a subordinate
Right.
and it be an accessory.
It
It could be,
introduces confusion.
yeah, it can be on manufacturing and commercial.
So do we need a motion for that?
So. Like I said, the question then is, we either come up with a definition for incidental manufacturing. Or we remove it from the matrix and let it fall underneath.
Just remove it.
That's some
Motion,
motion to remove it. Do I have a second? Second, all in favor? Any opposed? There we go.
I didn't know that neighbor owns in Dalton.
They did. They did. I
I
asked
said, they got it for years.
I asked for some free samples one time, and they didn't have any. No, they didn't have any.
They don't do tours either.
I've got one other question, I think. Mining and quarrying, when I went through the different districts, I didn't find it.
That's a new legislation.
I think we sent it to you at one time.
Yeah, that would have come across about the same time as the adult entertainment.
I didn't find it in what I had, but I found it in one of my notes as a special exception in M2.
Mhm.
So I'm correct that that's where it belongs.
And not permitted in agricultural, residential, or commercial.
That's right. Just a special exception in M2
Yeah,
Remind me one more time, what's it on to?
manufacturing.
manufacturing. It's heavy manufacturing
Okay.
beyond just general manufacturing.
Wait a minute, that's rock quarry, yeah.
Yes,
And where can it go?
in heavy manufacturing into. And that only exists in the county.
Now you've got group assembly highlighted here, is that
What's that one?
group assembly, is that the church?
It was just a question because it doesn't have a district that it's assigned to. It's in there as a use category without a place,
Gotcha.
so I'll take it out
Yeah.
since it doesn't
It
have.
doesn't have a use, there's no reason to be there.
Right. And really, the only other. The only other question that I have that I can think of. Um. Maximum height. In. The county. Is defined as stories and feet, so I've added them. To the matrix as 3 stories or 35 feet. M1, M2 have no maximum. When I get to. The city. I've got a. Number of stories and number of feet. In. R1, R2, R3 and C1, but then C2 only mentions feet. And I1 only mentions feet. Ag doesn't mention either in that context, but it defines a building maximum height.
Yeah, because silos are actually, there's actually a carve out for like silo, grain silos and whatnot. There's not a limit on height. to that.
Antennas,
And
et cetera.
antennas, yeah.
But my question, I guess, is, do we need a separate call out for building in town when other height restrictions are tied to structures, principal structure? I didn't understand why ag had a separate height definition or limit. I couldn't make sense of that. Building and structure are defined differently.
Well, because I get,
So, and here it is from building codes. Now, if a house has more than 3 stories. It's not built with the residential code. It automatically gets shifted over into the international building code, which means that they have to have spokes.
more commercially.
No, it goes through special inspections because of the height.
Mhm.
It has to be special, building framework and everything else like that to support the load.
So I guess it, my understanding of reading through that, because I've looked at that a couple of times, just out of curiosity. Is the structure would be barns and a house, but, or excuse me, buildings would be the barn, the house. A shed, but then structures would be grain silos, water, so it's not,
It's not that easy.
okay.
Building is any structure having a roof, basically.
Okay.
Structure is defined. Anything constructed, assembled, or erected. So
So whether it has a roof on it or not,
a building is any structure,
yeah.
but a structure is not necessarily a
Any
building. So my question, I guess, goes back to the height restriction. Do you see a problem in moving the height up to principal structure in this context? And eliminating the call out for building. Because building says any structure in agricultural,
I see the redundancy there.
but it doesn't say that in industrial.
Yeah.
You could have, you could have a batch silo for making concrete in industrial.
Yeah.
And is that different than a grain silo that may be called out in agriculture? So,
Yeah.
it just seemed like it was complicated where it didn't need to be.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mhm.
So it's okay to move the height maximum up to principal structure in agricultural, just like residential, industrial, and commercial.
Everyone understand?
And certain height, you ain't got no firefighting for it. Do the street.
That's it.
What does that mean? Firefight.
I mean, you know, unless you got one in Atlanta,
We don't have one.
we don't have those. For
which I believe is the reason why we have the limit of 35 feet.
And if you read it strictly, you couldn't have a grain silo higher than 35 feet. Because the building is any structure.
Yeah.
And I think this is intended to control the principal structure on agricultural application or anywhere else. That's where the confusion comes in. The building is actually a lot more restrictive than the principal structure.
Yeah.
So if you're on a farm and you don't regulate farm buildings anyway.
Yeah.
But if something came along on a farm, you would regulate the height of the house, but not the outbuildings.
Yeah.
And in this case, it does. It says a building is any structure.
How tall do you think those grain silos are up in Smith County?
Oh, they're up there.
Are they over
Yeah.
there about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the juices-
Things maybe 100.
Oh, really? Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff.
And this is saying that we can't have that in Charleston.
If you read it strictly, it says they're limited to 35 feet.
All right. Next court. Now you had some stuff.
I don't know. You ain't got. Right now, we don't have if somebody's. Inside, can't get, can't climb the ladder, you ain't got a ladder truck to get up there to get somebody out or to put out fire, if they got a fire inside of them. And they do burn, and they burn good when they get grain.
Silos burn
Yeah, so that grain gets burning, it burns.
and probably, I'm gonna assume Smith County has a ladder. So,
I don't know, but
I don't-
Smith County, and we're not worried
Get
about
one
that.
from Carthage City or Lafayette or Gallup.
maybe what they know,
Because they got one.
because they got it.
Our
We
place
have
here is
mutual
not
aid
to,
agreements with all of our counties.
Yeah.
They have it because they have a ladder truck.
yes, but our point here isn't to make changes to heights. Ours is to determine whether it's a redundancy to have it there or not.
Readability.
Yeah, we're cleaning things up, we're not changing things.
Yeah.
Changing things would be at another time. So
So we're not changing it.
we're not changing it, but what we're doing is, well,
We
as
were,
this-
that's what we were just saying.
as this body decides, should we, because it's the difference between having a separate carve out for buildings and structure. Structure covers buildings. So the point is, do we need to remove buildings from it completely? Because structure already covers the height regulations for anything built on the property.
And it's only looking at the principal structure.
Yeah.
And the way it is now, it regulates all buildings.
Yeah.
Except we can't.
Yeah.
It's a farm building, we can't.
So that's the question. Do we leave it as structural? And by definition, structure covers anything built. That way it covers everything, or do we leave the carve out the way it sits, and then it's just whoever's in Rosalie's office deciding, okay, well, that one fits this time, but maybe next time I see it a different way now. It just makes, to me, taking it out makes it easier to just be able to keep a consistency to things, which is what zoning is supposed to be. Alright, so there's a motion. Do I have a second?
Well, I'm not following one thing. Are we saying it can be higher than 35 feet?
No,
We're
That's
saying
right.
no. Okay then.
we're just saying which line it gets
Okay,
regulated under.
okay.
Both lines are saying the same thing.
They are, except one's excluding, the building part excludes limitations on the accessory structures. Where structures covers the whole thing on the property
Okay, so right now they can build the house,
to 35 feet.
right, then they built the barn, they can build it,
Pretty much.
Really?
It's an accessory structure at that point, so yeah.
And are we leaving it that way?
Now that's what I'm asking. I've got a motion. I'm waiting for a second.
Well, these barns we see just on regular farms. That's all it does.
Oh, it can be up there, it doesn't, I mean, it depends on the use. Depends on what
Well,
you're doing.
an old hay barn.
Mhm.
That I display in, would it be over 35 feet?
Well, most of the barns are at 35 feet, they're 3-story.
Yeah.
And there's a basement
Big
level,
tower.
upstairs.
What about silo?
I see that's another accessory, so. That'd be.
35 feet's not very tall for a silo.
No, no. Well, I'd say the silo right behind us here is taller than 35 feet for the concrete mix.
Right.
And moving this from building to principal structure would eliminate that confusion.
Okay, so it'd still be good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
So I've got a motion.
I'll say.
Jeff gives a second. All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? All right,
I'm gonna say something though, you know, when that company that's coming with the, sun,
oh, Enbridge.
that, barn, they're gonna build maybe over 35 feet, you may have to go in that time.
Well, there's,
We don't regulate that, that's federal.
yeah. We don't have control over utilities.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Beater, I think, talking about the burn permit. You want
Yes,
to
sir.
Get him out of the way before we move on.
Well, we can go ahead and drop down to other real quick. I hadn't heard back from you after our last discussion, so I didn't have you on for today. I didn't know if you were gonna be in town or not, so. But yeah, we can drop down to other real quick. So if you'll, the last thing we talked about back in February, it's on the minutes. The last two questions we needed to answer were time. How much time to get a permit authorized? And then how long would that permit be good for? And those were the last two questions that everyone agreed that we
The
needed.
state with their issuing for the rural parts of the area. Permit is good for the day of the call. You call today, the permit is good through today. If your pile has not extinguished itself or you need longer, then you call tomorrow and get a reissue. But if you make it match the state guidelines that are already in place for the rural areas, the permit is good for 1 day.
And who do they call? Cause she's off Saturday and Sunday.
And Rita's
Your
office,
ordinance says, call the county clerk's office.
so the county clerk's office is closed at noon on Saturday. and
They don't
closed
get
on
one
Sunday.
then,
So,
according to this.
yeah,
This would be a Monday through Friday,
Or Saturday.
or half day Saturday business hours.
No burning on Sunday.
well, I mean, technically you can get it approved and then the permit is for whatever day you want to burn. If you
They
want
won't
to.
permit you in advance.
So, okay,
But now this is a permit that you're gonna be approving though, right?
I'm not sure. There's no language in this,
well, in what we got so far, you would be the one approving.
okay?
And that's why we're wanting to know how long you would need from the time an application's filed for the permit to grant the permit.
The only thing that I need basically is as long as it's in compliance with the what you can burn would be weather conditions.
Okay,
The state restricts burns when it's too windy. Or if there has been a drought throughout the area. And if we are listed in one of the drought counties.
Okay.
They release that set of data every Thursday. They will update the drought counts during the summer months. So wind and drought conditions are basically the two reasons that a permit would be denied.
Okay.
And that's the grounds that the state uses for farmers.
And that's at what, website?
It's the state forestry website, Burn Safe TN.
so if Rita's gonna be the one issuing the permits, we're gonna need to have just something printed up with, you know, here's your rules for burning that she can hand out with the permit. That way they're not having to call you and she doesn't have to, it's not her job to.
As long as we're not listed in one of the drought counties.
Mhm.
And that's a website that's available.
Yep.
Online. And then if, the state normally will close open burning. Anytime the winds are somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 miles an hour. If they exceed that, there is no burn,
Okay.
because there's a danger of spread.
5 or 6 miles, being.
I've seen some real calm days get out of hand, but the state will not issue permits if the wind speeds are clocked at 10, 15 miles an hour.
So we would have to follow those rules because they're state rules.
Yes,
Yes. And I guess you're saying we could lower it, but
you can.
There's not many days that the wind is under 10, 15 miles.
Here lately, then.
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
It's windy, you're up.
I agree.
Yeah.
That means there's a whole lot of days that it's really dangerous to do open burning.
Because the whole point of this permit is for the urban area
Right.
where our houses are 15
50
foot
feet
apart.
of,
Yeah.
and in some
This don't
cases,
go into the county.
This is not in the
Yeah,
county.
Yeah, I gotta see.
This doesn't
just
get,
in time.
yeah. So
see that's big burn.
when you can spit on your neighbor's wall, you shouldn't really have a fire balling
Right.
10 miles an hour. I mean, it is common sense, but
Now, there's a lot of homes not in the urban district.
Yeah.
Mine.
Yep.
And my neighbors are right there where he is. All these new homes being built.
this is.
This would only affect urban.
You're gonna have to use more common sense out.
I might have a little, not much all the time, but my neighbors might.
Would there be a time that they could get a burn permit, say for the weekend, could they apply for more than one burn permit at a time? Say for instance, they wanna burn on a Saturday and a Sunday, and they just file 2 different burn permits for that and be approved? Or is that not a thing?
That shouldn't be a thing,
Cause you don't.
because you can't accurately tell what your conditions will be the next day
Okay.
or 2 days away.
You could tell the drought because that comes out on Thursday, but the wind you can't tell.
Correct.
Where do you find the wind.com?
You'd have to get one of the weather apps. Most everybody's got one on their phone that will show what the wind conditions, the current temperature and moisture levels are.
I look at it every week.
You do?
I look at it every day.
I don't like fishing in the wind.
Yeah, I got storm shield, so.
And David, you all can leave the permit dollar
Mhm.
in or out. I would not recommend charging for this.
Okay.
This is never gonna be a money-making thing.
No,
I think the exchange of monies will make it even more cumbersome to deal with. Because that means you're gonna have to do a face-to-face encounter with the clerk,
Mhm.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Under other conditions, you may be able to do a permit by a phone call without the fee.
Well, the idea of the fee was it is gonna be an extra setup that she has to put on her permitting software. And so therefore, the $20 covers that, and anything above that would go to the fire department.
I don't disagree with it. I just don't think it will reduce enough dollars during the course of a year
Yeah,
to be
no,
worth it.
it's not meant to be a revenue generator, it's just meant to cover the
So there'd
administrative.
be nobody ever.
It may be more apt to turn it in, single payment.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, the idea
And the
though.
state does not charge for the issuance of the rural permits.
Okay. But the idea of having, when they get their permit, they get a set of rules, here's how here's how what you can and can't burn. they're not gonna get that over the
And the
phone.
most important thing that we need from the fire department standpoint would be the person's name and their physical location where they're burning. So that if someone does report it, then there has been a permit issued on file that we can reference.
So we could,
And how would they go, say they call it the clerk, how are you gonna get to that reference?
They'll have to, the clerk's office will have to make that available to police dispatch. That's
Just
how
phone
we,
over there and let them know,
yep, or send them an email.
or send them an email.
We can send an email back and forth to do that, but if we need verification, we're gonna contact the dispatch center and they become our focal point for whether permits are issued or not.
Well, I would say,
They already verify us in the rural parts of the county.
I'd recommend that you don't charge anything. That office is not overloaded with work, I wouldn't think. I have no clue. I'm assuming they're not.
that'll get you in
overloaded.
trouble around
I'm
here.
assuming. And I mean, how long does it take? About 10 minutes?
So Mark, instead of actually handing out a written copy of the burn rules, could we not post those rules of burning in urban on the county website?
You can.
And then that way they can be, when they call in, then it says, okay, now here's the rules listed here, and give the website address. And so that way, if they get caught, they can't say, well, I didn't know.
And
give them
most of the
information.
time, this is gonna occur when they're doing some spring or fall cleanup around the home.
Yeah.
Or following a storm that's moved through the area and they've got more than usual tree limb debris. Some others that become guilty of this are some of your building contractors where they're burning scrap. But that could be handed out once a permit is issued, so they would know what some of those permissible things are and the non-permissibles.
If I'm not mistaken, the way the permit is, the way we've got it written out so far, it would actually ban commercial. So your builders are burning their trash in an open burn pile is no longer permitted.
Correct,
They have to get a dumpster from the county and dispose of it that way.
correct.
Which is the way it is done in
Most
both
areas.
Sumner and Wilson counties. Any other questions for Mr. Beal? I think you sufficiently answered the last two. I would ask if this does get passed, if you would come up with those rules for burning, what you can and can't. And that way, if this passes through the commission, we can just get that posted to the website.
Okay.
And, that should take care of that part. And then, yeah, Rita can just take down information and so as long as they're following those rules, the permit is good to go and they're permitted. And if they're not following them, when the fire department shows up, then they're in violation. Okay,
I'd kind of like to have the rules on the day we vote for it, because I don't even know what they are, and I'd like to know.
Well, what we've tried to do, and Rick worked with me extensively on this, is we tried to make this mirror and match the guidelines that the state has for what is acceptable materials and unacceptable. And, Rick, you may have that pulled up. I don't.
No,
Oh, you don't. I don't have it all with me either, but
no, sir.
construction debris, asphalt shingles, any tar-based materials, paints. Those were the things that were not permitted to be burned.
yeah, that would actually help then, Mark says, we push this forward to, the full commission. Having that list go along with it, and then that list will be what gets posted to the website.
Because in
So
your
that'll,
permit, you've referenced, Tennessee Air Quality Act.
Mhm.
And it's within that act that the items are listed that can be disposed of by burning
and what,
and those that cannot. Old tires, cannot be burned, shingles cannot be burned. a lot of those asphalt-based and rubber-based, oil-based products cannot.
Tires,
Correct.
Now, out of curiosity, because I'm old. Back in the
Curious.
day, we burned our trash every day, every 2 or 3 days. The new people, I mean, people don't do that much anymore, but you can't do that anymore.
You would not be able to do it in the city. You could do it out in the county.
There's no reason to do it in the city. You got trash pickup that you're already paying for, so.
I just wondered, most people don't do that, but I just wondered.
Rick, you've helped me work on this. Have I misspoken on
No,
anything so
no,
far?
no, not at
What
all,
we've talked about?
not at all. I pulled up
Is that the,
one of the last versions that I had.
Mhm.
And it mentions specifically burning of refuse, garbage, trade waste. We took away trees, limbs, leaves, brush, grass. Flammables, combustibles, wood scraps, and materials from construction or salvage operations.
right. We were going to allow people to burn leaves, limbs, and small amounts of trash,
Right, right.
but not the other things.
yeah, we had two people got a little pit thing and they burn,
Fire pit,
yeah, they gonna burn wood, I mean. From a.
Those are like loans.
Yeah.
Right, we're not talking about.
That's permissible
That's recreational and
Yeah,
religious.
they go.
And even does not need a permit for those kinds of things.
Once I got a metal drum and they does and binding it up.
Yeah,
Well, now that's not,
We run into that every once in a while.
yeah.
in the city, under this permit, you're not allowed to do that.
What happens if you do? If this gets passed, what happens if
We put it out,
you bring the fire truck and put it out?
absolutely.
And
If we're called for that fire, then we will, and if we deem it to be a
So that's the,
illegal burn, or it does not match your guidelines, we're gonna put it out.
And then sheriff department should write them a citation for illegal. Go to court, they can't take care. They, right?
I mean, that was the discussion that we had that. At that point, you're breaking, because this is gonna go through as an ordinance. So if you don't get a permit or you violate the permit of burning, then now you've broken the law in Trousdale County and the.
Well, there's no definitions in your ordinance
Mhm.
draft for what happens if you violate.
So maybe that's where we can put the money in. You violate, you pay $150 fine if you're found guilty by the court.
Well, I think that's gonna be up to the
Yeah,
judge.
that's a-
I wanted to say that the
Oh,
judge is
yeah.
going to.
That's true, yeah.
And I'll be glad when this gets passed, because I do see contractors burning material
Yeah.
and.
Yeah.
You know,
Or
they-
starting behind my house now.
well, and they don't pick up their construction trash, and it's a hazard out there.
If they don't burn, they bury.
Yeah.
Now, but most of this construction, let me just be clear in my mind, most of this construction houses is
Yeah.
not going on in city limits.
No, that's not true.
So,
Oh,
well,
no.
some is, but I know a lot that's not. Can, the law you just said. That covers them, they can't burn either.
They most certainly are burned, yes, ma'am.
Well, they are.
Every house that's been
Can
built in,
they? I'm saying can,
they're not supposed to. Clean
That's
air
what I
Act,
meant.
yeah.
They're supposed to, if they're outside the city, they're supposed to obtain a state permit from October 15 through May 15. That is the restricted season that the state has. Other half of the year or portion of the year, open burning can be done without a permit.
So you could, with your permit, just make up this little thing that you hand out each one, no open burning. Between,
If it's in the
if
urban
it's in the-
district,
no, county. Who's talking county?
So what you get into is what they're burning.
Well, we're talking construction.
Yes, but in construction, you have petroleum-based products, asphalt. That kind of all gets thrown together sometimes.
Well, and like what Rick just read you, I found my draft that had that in it too. You can't burn garbage, trade waste, flammables, combustibles, wood scraps, materials from construction or salvage operations.
And that's gonna be in the urban if this passes.
You allowed for limbs, leaves, brush, grass, and trees to be burned.
As long as it's from your property,
Mhm.
the state law.
You can't accumulate it from all over the neighborhood. It was tied to one property.
All right, well, that's the questions that we were still up in the air about on our last meeting, so
Okay.
I should be able
That's
to.
all you got
Yeah.
for me, then.
I should be able to get that added in and we'll have a full document to present at our next meeting.
Okay.
And then we'll vote on that and then see where we go from there.
You're welcome to stay for all.
Yes, sir.
I think we're good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
All right, so HUD zoning. And I wanted it here as a place to start. We've got one gentleman who's waiting for this to come through for his project. We had another developer come through who actually requested to do a PUD zoning. And we didn't have it to offer to him. So as we're getting more people coming from Nashville, building out here, they're expecting what they already have dealt with there. So we need to kind of get something going. What is in your packet is what Rick had kind of put together for us based on Cheatham counties. And this is actually a pretty straightforward scenario. It breaks it down, gives directions on each step of the way. This would take away. No, it doesn't take away. This would add an option for the county commission. Instead of having these open zoned R3s that you can put 12 units per acre on to, okay, here's what's gonna go on that property, now you've said in a couple of these rezonings, and what is it that the commissioners ask every time? Well, what are you planning on building? It's irrelevant. The rezoning is irrelevant on what they say they're planning on doing.
So this is gonna take the place of R3.
It is not. It's what I would like to do, but.
So why would
This would
somebody
be
want this
excellent.
instead of the R3?
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. So this would be an additional type of planning, because it would be for residential or commercial, or allow a residential commercial development. Which currently we don't really have, you have to do separate zonings for that. But Rosalie and I were discussing. So right now you have certain fees for different things you come through, where rezoning is $350. Major subdivision is $500. Your final site plans, well, that's another, what's the fee on that?
Well, if you do a major subdivision,
That covers the site plans and all. So between the two, if you're gonna do a major subdivision and you're gonna do a rezoning, you're $850. That's what it's gonna cost you. We could easily, for doing a PUD, because you're gonna have to do both of those things to do the PUD, drop it down to 600 or even 500. And that would be a financial encouragement to do this. The other is, if the commission decides, okay, as I have as a commissioner and on planning, I'm not going to vote yes on an R3 over 5 acres. I think I've dropped it down to 3 at this point because of the density of it. I mean, because at 5 acres, that gives you 60, that you can put out there.
What are they asking up above High Street? How many acres is that?
It's 9 acres and 3 commercial.
it's
There's
it's
11
11
total.
acres and it's like two for commercial and the rest will be in park.
So you're still looking close to 60.
Yeah, I believe another one left,
So,
but because of that,
yeah,
because that end is traffic there.
but
That's been-
that allows.
But
This,
so that's an R3 as far as the mountain build is the same,
no,
but it's less.
PUD is its own zoning. And the only restrictions on a PUD are what the commission and planning put on that PUD. That falls within these regulations that are in front of us. It creates a whole different zone. So you'd have A1, R1s, commercial, and then you'd have HUD.
But I'm saying the amount that you can put on the same as PUD as it is R3. You can still put 12 units per acre, right?
It's however.
Or could you change the
define it.
distancy in a PUD? Could you not be more dense? But
You could, but the way this is set up, if it's single family, it's 4.35 per acre
so it's
or 12 per acre if it's multifamily.
but it would allow for multiple houses on the same property. Well, right now in R1 that's one house and that's it. So in a PUD, it would allow you
Do both.
to do, yeah,
What also it does is stop somebody from saying they go put houses. And then they sell it to somebody else and they come in and put
apartments
apartments.
and increase the.
They increase it without having, they don't have to, because it's already.
Like, if it's zoned in PUD,
Mhm.
like in R3, if it's zoned for that many houses, you can't stop.
Nope.
So what in this makes it where we can stop it?
If they change, so that what the process will be, is they would come through planning. And they would present their request for rezoning, just like they do now. But with that request for rezoning, they would have to bring a preliminary site plan of what the project is going to be. That they want to build in this new rezone. And then that goes with the rezoning request as a PUD to the full commission. Now, if they get granted and they come back to planning with their final, and the final is completely different than the preliminary. Can't do it. That's where it stops.
We can legally tell them.
We can
they
legally-
can't do it.
Yeah.
Yep, you can't do it.
That's what the question.
And they would have to come back and go through the process all over again for the new changes that are outside the master plan that they submitted.
So that's what happened. Now you got a lot of changes that happen from the start.
We had a run there where we had entities coming in, buying up property. Getting site plans approved for the property, getting the rezonings done. And then selling the property off. And then to whatever, because once it gets sold off. The next person coming in, it says it's R3. Well, what's allowed in R3? Well, then that's what I want to do.
So the HUD, it don't exactly allow the same amount of units.
Mhm.
What I'm saying is the guy comes in and he
Yeah.
brings it in.
Yeah.
He's got 90 units, but
Yeah.
he could really put 120.
Yeah.
Then he sells. it.
Mhm.
Then the next guy comes in and he decides he wants to do the 120.
He can't do the PUD.
He has to use the same
He has
master
to use
plan
the
that
same.
was filed. And
Yeah,
if he wants to use a different master plan, he's gotta go through the whole process again and get approved.
So the
And we can-
question
And
is,
planning commission can deny it.
how do you limit your selling? That's what I'm. How do?
No,
I'm not selling
No.
permits, I'm selling.
No, so that's the thing. It comes through planning and then through the full commission.
Because how does the commission? Lead or stop? Between our three, I mean, just saying, oh, I'm not gonna vote, well, in 10 years, everyone may vote.
Yeah.
In Sumner County, did you notice people taking our PUDs over R3s, or did they limit R3 some way? or-
They eventually got to the point that the only rezoning they would approve was a PUD.
That's the quick answer.
So from the commission standpoint, we're right now, you're not given an option.
No.
It's only, you only have the option of open rezoning. So that anything allowed in that zone, that's what you're approving. That's your only option. You either approve everything in the zone or you don't approve it at all.
So they quit approving it, but it's still available.
They didn't quit, they just said this is what we prefer. And if you brought a request through other than a PUD, it wasn't likely to get approved.
By the commission.
Right.
So
Sometimes
again-
it could, but it was a rare thing.
So
Most of the
again,
time it was a PUD.
lays the responsibility.
Of the
on
commission. And it should.
Not the county commission, what I'm seeing here, most everything is being controlled, other than the rezoning,
Yeah, but the rezoning is the
Is-
permission.
is the planning commission.
Yes.
They monitor the
So-
rate.
So the process, just the way it is now. The difference is when we get it in commission, right now, we have to look at all the possibilities that can go into this new zone. And that's what we're approving. So you have to look at the worst, the most dense and say, does that belong here? Regardless of whether that's what they're wanting to do or if they say they want to do. With a PUD, they're gonna tell you in writing,
I understand that.
here's what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
And if they decide that, okay, the commission approved it. The planning commission then makes sure that what the commission approved in the PUD, the general plan, the preliminary, that is what is followed through with. And then she makes sure that as they're building it, it follows through, just like it is now. Right now, you come in for a rezone, the commission grants the rezone. It then goes for a site plan review with the planning commission, and then Rosalie's department makes sure that they're abiding by everything on the site plan.
So it's up to the what?
it
Yes,
would be the planning commission to review it. And send it to the county commission.
yes, just like a zoning is done now.
Right, but
Did I?
the plat or site plan goes with the rezoning request
Now,
to the county.
Yeah.
To the county commission, and then anything after that. That's based on the master plan, like final master plan,
yeah, we go.
only goes to the planning commission,
Yes,
unless there's a change.
just like a site plan now. Site plans never come to the full commission.
Right.
But now you'll get in writing, instead of asking, hey, so what are you planning on doing on this property? Which is meaningless.
Still saying, but if they sell it, and we approve 90 units on this.
Mhm.
That's all they can put on it, period.
Unless,
They have to follow the.
They can't come back and say, well, this right here says we do 120. If we just don't
no,
approve.
because it's
90.
no longer, once that PUD is approved, it's not rezoned R3, it's rezoned PUD.
Right,
Right.
so whatever the commission decides can be put on it, that's it.
Yes, unless they come back for another rezoning,
And like. And then if we don't give it to them.
then they're stuck with what it was previously zoned
Okay.
or
That's
the
good.
PUD. That's it,
So it first goes to the planning commission.
yes,
And they recommend.
yes,
Well, but now here, the planning commission. It's not just like a regular rezone for the planning commission, because they look at. All what's in our ordinances and things like that. When it comes to planning for the first time, they're also looking at it like
it's a site plan,
a major subdivision.
yeah,
As in, they look at it as like a preliminary. Plat, looking at water lines, streets. What's going on there, does it meet the ordinances?
And
Is
we don't
everything-
discuss that before we
No.
vote.
No.
We need to start.
no, because it's not your purview, it's planning's.
Okay.
That's what planning already has, they have the authority over
Well,
major,
and they have
So-
training too,
Yeah.
Start coming to planning.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm.
but yeah, so that's your difference. This actually takes some of the liability, some of the risk of some of these high density rezonings out from the county. We know exactly, if we're gonna do high density, we know exactly what's there. It also gives flexibility to the developer. It allows the mix of commercial with residential on the same property. But the commission and planning will determine how that looks in a PUD.
But we're not gonna have R3.
No, you'll still have it.
Well,
we're not
nobody's
taking
gonna
risks.
vote for it.
Well, I know, but they could choose, I mean, you
Yeah.
can't say you can't do
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
anymore.
So what if they go through R3, then they come to the commission and we turn it down?
Then it gets turned down.
So
You don't have the legal obligation
That
Right.
to,
in Gallatin,
To do
the
it.
commission is just
If
denying.
we look at it, I mean, as far as
Yeah, they,
what I'm saying, we wouldn't ever wanna vote for R3 again.
That's what
Yeah,
he's saying.
I'm 100% on
That's what
that.
he's saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
But you can't take it out of the zone. It still has to be there. We're just giving another option, a preferred option. If you want to get R3s, then this is the process you
But
want
it
to do.
just gives us more control.
It does.
Right.
So that we don't end up with a bunch of Gallatin, because we don't have the land
Hey,
for
down
it.
there where the red light is on that long stretch going into Galveston,
Yeah.
that property on the left.
Yeah.
They cut, the planning commission has turned them down like 4 times.
Yeah.
Put subdivision in there.
And eventually they're gonna,
Just because of traffic.
But eventually they're going to get it in there because, and one of the times they turned it down because of infrastructure. Well, you didn't have water and sewer. Well, water and sewer, they paid and it's now theirs. And then they submitted it again. And they just keep, the planning commission doesn't want that large of outside the city limits. And so, but my thing is, so you go over to the Gallatin area there on Greenland. And all those apartments that are popping up through there, well, any R3, they can do max. And as John Kerr says multiple times, if you got enough money, you can build anything anywhere. So a builder saying, oh, well, the grade's too steep, I can't build on that part. What? You know, they build in Gatlinburg all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah, they,
but yes, this gives us that security
Right.
on a commission side of, and it makes it easier to vote. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, we need that.
Right.
Instead of, well, but what might go there? And so that's the point of the PUD. And like I said, it does lock them in so that if they sell it and someone else comes in, yes, they have the right to rezone. And do another PUD. If they want to do a PUD for 100, then they come in, they present that. And if it gets approved, well then, okay, but they can't just start building it because they bought the property.
And I assume eventually the people in that area have learned not to request R3.
Exactly.
Go PUD.
That answered my question. That's what I've been thinking.
So the reason I had it printed out and put in our agenda packet tonight is I want you guys to take it home, and as Rosalie is doing right now. Highlight anything you got questions on, anything that you have a concern about, or you think should be different, highlight it. And at our next meeting, I want to go through those. I want to discuss those. I want to have that general discussion because this is creating a whole new zoning category. And we need to go through it and make sure that this is suitable for Trousdale County.
One thing that I would bring to your attention and ask you to consider. Right now, the way it's written, the minimum size for a residential PUD is 5 acres. So you're precluded having a PUD on something smaller than that. Same thing with commercial, minimum size is 2 acres. You're precluded from having anything smaller than that. Do you want that restriction in there?
I don't think so. My sister lived in a beautiful condominium
Mhm.
PUD. There was six or seven units, luxury, beautiful.
If we're going to do that, then we have to be able to change the density also, because there's no other reason. If you're not gonna increase the density, there's no reason to drop it below those. I wouldn't.
No, I mean, this is separate. The density is separate from what I'm talking about.
I understand, but your R3 that you're allowed because of setbacks and whatnot already keep you from having the over density if you're in those smaller lots.
But the way it's written, the way it's presented is, you can't ask for a PUD.
Okay,
If it's less than 5 acres.
well, then that's something we need to discuss as a committee.
Where is this located?
It's
Because
down,
I didn't see that.
it's down in the R PUD provision under 6.040. If you get down there that far. And then commercial, the CMU PD is 2 acres.
I bet my sister's wife would be 1 acre. June. They have a lot of these in Memphis. You know, you say this is the driveway coming down through there, parking. And your front yard's closest and we were there. And literally.
yeah,
And beautiful, beautiful places to live.
Well, I asked Ashland City to consider that minimum size restriction, and they decided to take it out for what that's worth.
Yeah, and I see that what you're.
It's not as much of an issue in the county out away from town as it is in town. You know, how many 5 acre lots and larger do you have in town that are developable as
Carmen, there's
residential?
a whole lot of 5 acre lots.
Oh, yeah.
They were they sold everything their lots, they farms they got, they broke them down to 5 acre lots.
But I would love
Didn't have to
some
come to planning for
luxury.
5 acre lot.
Well,
You have to come through planning.
afford it.
I sold Gene Stone's farm in Lebanon, 5 acre lots,
Yeah.
and it's right there on the bypass.
I would love some luxury cottage if anyone wants to build them.
All right, so I think for
No
tonight,
problem.
that this was the discussion I wanted started. Like I said, please take this home, please read through it. Highlight what you have questions, concerns, you want clarification on. And then our next meeting, we'll go into a deeper, we'll have more time for that. Let's go on to food truck permits.
Before we go, can
Yeah.
I ask a question?
Because of time, if
Yeah,
you'll save that
you're
for our
right,
next
You're
meeting.
right, well, I'm sorry.
We still got
But
two
yeah,
quick
go
ones.
on, you're right.
So on food truck permits, if you'll look in your packet, there should be, did she not put that in?
Nope.
I have
So,
to
okay.
get on my secretary.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's right here on the back page, yeah,
Oh, okay.
your last page of your packet. So this is a breakdown of your sales tax collection for this year, going back into December of last. So this is not including your Subway, your McDonald's, or your Sonic, your franchise, large national chains. It's just our local brick and mortar places here. And you can kind of see what our average a month combined, their averages there. And the idea is, if we're gonna do a permit for the food trucks who don't have business license, a thought is to break it down, so for a month, you take the average across, say, a year. What's the average that we bring in sales tax from any, particular business averaged out? And then you break it down to, okay, so if you wanna do, if you wanna have your food truck here for a day, then that's a 1/30th of this amount, and that's what your fee is. Or if you wanna do the whole month, or if you wanna do a week,
What would that be?
well, that's what we'd have to, I've got you, for discussion purposes, I've got you 3 months there. And you can see kind of the median there. I mean, you got 2 months, it was, 790. In February, there was a tick up. Stretch that over the year and try to see what that average is.
What would it be divided or?
Well, in this particular thing, your year would just be 3 months. You would just do an average of those three,
What is it?
somewhere around 800. Because you're,
Their permit would be $800.
if they were here for a full 30 days. That would be, their permit cost then replaces the potential of sales tax that we would lose that day. Or that
It'd
month.
be 30 for 30 days or
Yeah.
3 months?
No, because see, that's, each one of those is a month. So it'd be the average of a month through the year. And then if you want a 30-day permit, then there's your fee.
What,
If you want
what
less,
does
then
these
you divide
permits
it down.
extend to? I know you're talking about food trucks. There's,
Yeah.
every once in a while, you got somebody sitting on the side of the road selling something just for,
Yeah, and so that's something we need to discuss. Then you gotta come up with a definition of what's a food truck.
well, I'm talking about things selling food.
Yeah. So, I mean, any vendor
You talking
selling
about the
food.
fruit, Anthony's fruit?
No,
It could be that, or it could be somebody,
or it could be someone who just pulls up with a trailer and a grill and starts selling hot dogs and hamburgers.
But I mean, we have people selling corn and tomatoes and
or
fruit.
somebody coming up in a truck full of hanging baskets and so
So is that a difference? between-
Strawberries,
Yeah, so that's something, I mean, that's the discussion. So this discussion is being driven right now by a food truck who has become a brick and mortar
on. Right.
and doesn't want food trucks to have the advantages that they had to get their brick and mortar started, because now it's competition of brick and mortar, is the way I look at it.
Do a brick and mortar, you're talking about somebody that's got an actual
It
building.
has a building
That's right.
now, who started,
That's what I'm
coffee
saying.
shop over here in town.
well, I wasn't gonna call anyone out.
Like to throw out.
Because there's more
that we
There's
didn't
more than
want.
one food truck that has started as a food truck and then progressed. Some of our brick and mortars have closed and become food trucks.
Right.
Hibachi out at Four Way,
Which one?
Pig Pen. I mean, So I mean, it goes both ways.
Yes, he closed and
Place or lot.
Yeah.
Or
And I don't think we want to,
Well, and even,
my opinion, not just
Yeah.
to throw out for everyone to think about. We want to encourage these trucks to come. Everybody loves them.
right,
If you're paying a lot just to come and try out the business, how are we gonna get brick and mortar?
Well, brick and mortar don't like it.
so here's,
Too bad.
so, no,
Well, it's a
But-
business, I mean, they're losing
But
money,
they started by being a.
not all of them did.
not all of them. Now, let's,
Two of them did.
well, two doesn't mean all, but now here's the other caveat to this. Now that's, as I was explaining, that's where the fee would come from. Talking with Rita, she already has some food trucks that have business license in Trousdale County, and they already are paying their sales tax to Trousdale County, which this is the only thing we're trying to do. We're just trying to recoup lost sales revenue. So that it's equal footing with the brick and mortars. So if you already have a business permit and you operate a food truck, the idea would be you don't have to pay a fee, you just get a permit for operating. Because you're already paying sales tax to Trousdale County. This fee would apply to people from outside the county coming in, operating for a day, operating for a month or two, not getting a business license, and giving their tax dollars back to wherever county they have their business license in.
so if they got a business license, they don't have to get the permit.
They do have to get a permit, but they don't have to pay a fee for the permit.
How much
That would be the
is it?
idea.
Not all food trucks in the county have business license.
Exactly.
That live in the
How much
county
is a business?
has business license. It depends on how they file it. If it's a sole proprietor or if it's an LLC. And that's something that you have to talk to Rita
Yeah.
about. Now, here's the other caveat as well,
Yeah,
is that not all food trucks have been inspected by the state and are operating. And could potentially be unsafe, not only for food illnesses, but also how are they firing up things? What are they using to power
are they a fire?
their, right, are there propane tanks? If they're using propane tanks, are they safe? Have they been inspected? So that's something too. Do we want things coming into the county?
Food trucks, do they get inspected?
Some,
Yes. They're
some are
supposed,
health inspected, yeah.
they have to be,
Yeah.
really.
Wherever you have your permit.
No, the state,
No,
the state.
but I mean, you have to have, I assume you got to buy a permit before that permit.
They're supposed to post it, just like any business. So you'll see, if you go down here
Made from scratch.
to the, well, beside you, the
Yeah.
Hero place there.
Yeah.
And you look, they've got it stuck on the thing that there's their health permit. So you know they're legal. That's part of Rosalie going and inspecting, but it's hard when they just pop up for 8 hours during the day for her to get there. And before they're gone and
They don't
What
have.
do you expect? The things you just said?
Bingo.
codes and zoning.
Would they have to have that, maybe they'd have to have that tag you talking about to get the permit?
Yes, so you
So,
would have to have your health,
That way you
your
don't
health
have to go
certificate.
look. You know, they already got it.
That's right.
And then have to read over, whether we'd have to come up with some, like a sticker or some permit that they would post. Hey, I've got my, it would go right beside their health permit.
Right.
And I'm good to go. And any officer could stop and say, hey, let me see it, and if you don't. They write them a fine.
Well, now, here's the thing, before Rita issues any business license, it all comes through my office. Again, I've got that placard that's in the software that I print out. That we can laminate and then get it to them, so they can be paying
did the Ridge have a permit
to do what?
run their food truck?
Yes, ma'am, they were health inspected, yes, ma'am,
What about this place by the sheriff's office?
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, cause they've been here for a while.
They all have,
And I'm
Not
no
when they were
way,
a food truck.
yes, ma'am.
I am no way proposing this as a block to food trucks coming. Because we do get a variety, otherwise we would not get in Charleston County. But At the same time, I understand the argument of the brick and mortars. Hey, I'm
If you
paying
never had
sales
these,
tax.
You'll know what they're talking about.
Yeah. There's unfair competition that can take place in circumstances. And it needs to be an equal playing field. If I'm having to pay the county to operate, they should have to pay us too.
Well,
From a county standpoint, I'd rather than paying us than paying Sumner or Macon or Wilson,
there's
because they're
this
operating here.
food truck that you hear on the radio where it's gonna be that day. It's very, very popular. It's something to do with.
The shrimp boil, I've seen it up here.
Shrimp bowl banks,
Yeah,
they're
I
from
don't think
trucks
that's
now.
the name of it. But you hear on the radio,
Cousins,
yeah,
Maine lobster.
Yeah.
Okay.
a lot, we wanted to come here once, twice a year. Sure. So they're not gonna buy permits, say, oh, well, on Thursday, I'm going.
Actually, other places like you see all these, for instance, you've got the farmer's market event that's gonna be going on here in a couple of weeks. They'll have a bunch of food trucks.
Mhm.
Other jurisdictions have the food trucks get a permit in order to operate at these events.
That's all in any of your outside counties.
yeah.
They
All
gotta
of
get a
them.
permit.
Yeah, they do.
Every food truck that's operating out has permits. They're already doing this.
But they don't
We
have
just
here.
don't.
We just don't.
And a lot of times we have a lot of stuff come in here and they don't last long, maybe.
Yeah.
And I want to keep going. I don't necessarily go to them, but people go. They
I
really
go
like
to
it.
them, I mean,
Yeah.
Go to them all the time.
And we've had several, and to me, I look at it as success stories, that you come in, you're with a food truck, it's a minimal investment to showcase a product. And then you realize whether the market wants that product or not. The Euro place, they've got a brick and mortar in Lafayette,
Well, this,
and they're doing tons of business up there.
this, Farmer's Harvest, it started as a food truck.
Yeah.
Out of 231.
Sure did.
So most of these started as a food truck. I'd like for it not to be, I still wanna recommend for everyone to consider it not be that high, that it's too expensive.
So please, I'm presenting an idea for discussion. I have no way that I got anything drawn up as a chairman to say, hey, here's what I'm pushing.
And I
I
put in
was,
my 2 cents.
so, and
We
this
just
was
don't
just
wanna
a,
keep losing money.
exactly. And now,
But how much money is it really? If a food truck comes twice a month, let's think about it.
Mhm.
If you come twice a week for a year.
well, here, I'll just run the numbers real quick and
It's more than you think. Whole lot,
36,
more than it comes out of your property tax, then you wouldn't have to pay.
So you're thinking 24 days. Twice a week.
Okay, but I don't know, I couldn't do that math in my head.
Oh, twice, it's more than that.
He's on
I think it's standard.
all right, so averaging these out is $853 a month. So if you take that $853,
800,
$853. You take that and you divide that by 30, just an average month. That's $28 a day to operate. Now, is that too much to ask?
no, what's 28 times, 2 days a week, a year, 2 days a week?
Well, there's 26 weeks in a year. You're doing twice that, so that'd be 52. So. It's 52 weeks. Yeah, 20, she said twice a week.
Twice a week.
So. Okay, so 50, so it'd be 104. All right, so that'd be $2,900 a year. But that's still
Do we
$24 a
have
day.
any idea from this complaining person? And I don't
No,
mean
no,
that bad.
No, we're
I
not,
just
we're
wonder
not
what they
taking,
made with their food.
I'm not even considering that. It is brought up by a brick and mortar place.
Understand
It
that.
has been discussed on multiple levels, even from planning of the regulation of food trucks since it started coming and the loss of sales tax dollars from the commission
We
standpoint.
do understand.
So,
that, but
we're not
I'm
talking-
Starting
Mhm.
out.
We are, as this body, I am not casting any disparity on
understand.
any business
I understand.
or any one person driving this. This has been a discussion that has gone on for a long time. And I'm just bringing this as the discussion. So I will not entertain any discussion about a particular business.
Well,
So let me make that
Thanks,
We're
clear.
attacking the sales tax, we want our sales tax, we don't want to have to pay it out of our property tax. Cause these people coming in are the people that have brick and mortar. Get cheated out of people coming to their business because they go to these food trucks.
okay, there's a new food truck that's been here a few months. And they are local people.
Yep. And if they have
I'm
a
going to
business
make the
license.
Assumption that they don't, they're young, I'm just gonna make this, I have no idea if they do or not. And they're cooking in their own home and they hope to grow. At the very beginning, starting off, who we want to.
It's $24 a month. If they're not making more than that,
Then they don't. need to-
$24 a day. If they're not making more than that in a day,
They may wanna rethink.
They
what
might
they're
wanna
saying.
They made 18 off me, that one, that's what they're making.
that's
They
the,
change it in,
that's the point.
or they're nasty or something, nobody go,
So the last thing,
So if they get this permit. We have, they automatically, because you give that info to the health department goes in also. Well, what's that process?
Before they get their permit, they should show that they've been inspected by the.
Yeah, they have to get that.
And then,
Before they come to her, they'll have to show that they had to go get their permit,
They'll have to have their papers right, but they-
yeah,
yeah,
they better.
or if they have a business license with Trousdale County, they should already have the health stuff to go with it. And so it's just, we're not gonna charge a fee because they're already giving
And
sales.
propane
dollars.
tanks can make a big.
They can.
I know, because I used, yeah, bond.
All right, so the last item on our agenda should be a.
so what would you sign that out to be thinking?
That is, yes, we're starting new discussions for future, and that's all to tonight's meeting. I was wanting to get Rick's questions answered, get him to a point where he can,
Do you know anything about food trucks in your town?
No, no.
all right, so the next thing
Good
we've got is liquor stores, the package stores. So back I believe it was the seventies, Rita found a city ordinance that said you could only have 2 liquor stores in Hartsville
I
at
remember.
any one given time. Now, anyone who's lived here more than 30 years has been here with more than 2 liquor stores in Hartsville.
Yes.
Right now, there is a business owner who's asking to open another liquor store. So Rita before she gave the okay, she went back through all her ordinances to see if she could find that. Well, that was back in the seventies. But since then, all through the nineties, there was at least 3 and 4 at one point. We currently only have 2.
3,
We have 2.
that one at, going towards, Carthage, they don't sell liquor anymore.
No, it's a
No.
vape shop. That went out. That went out before Nick's, well, right when Nick's opened it. So we're down to 2 again. Do we want to? And then Brandon Beller is looking into this also to see because there is a little bit of a conflict in what we've done and what that ordinance stated. So to help clean that up, we can just propose an ordinance out of here to either, yes, limit it to 2 in Trousdale County, or just take the limit off together and say there are no limits to how many stores. We don't limit any other
That's
stores.
sales tax, that's where you're gonna get it.
So, and I just wanted to bring that topic up for discussion on this body. I'm waiting to hear more from Mr. Beller on what he recommends and what he finds, and we'll be bringing that. But do y'all see a need to limit
No,
No.
package stores in Trousdale County? Because
They
right
don't
now,
have 10, let them have,
I mean,
as long as they meet all the restrictions.
if your concern is, well, increased alcoholics in the area, well, you're not gonna get any more than you already have. That's an individual person.
Yeah.
How many stores doesn't make it any easier or any harder.
I think there has been some legal challenges to that. Back in the day, I had a discussion with someone today that said that one time there were 4 different liquor stores because someone went to court, challenged it, and won. And so that should be on the record somewhere.
It should be.
And-
Rita couldn't find it anywhere through her records. In discussing with Rita, that came up, and so she was gonna try to get with Kim to see if Kim has anything in the court records. Because if that has been done, it has been overturned, then Rick, correct me if I'm wrong here, but if a judge has overturned a rule, of legislative, then that makes that legislation void, correct?
Right.
Therefore, there is no limit beyond that.
It's, I mean, it's gotta be particular to the ruling,
Yeah,
what he ruled on. So it's worth understanding what that involves.
okay. So at that point, it's waiting on Mr. Beller to do his due diligence.
Which judge was that one under?
I don't know if that'd been CK Smith or,
And I think they also referenced the state. I think the state said that, no, that's not it.
yeah, because the state gives all that authority to limit that to county and municipals. So county and city governments can do that.
All
The
the state
state
does
doesn't.
is the license.
Yeah. So, once again, is that something that this body wants to take up of passing an ordinance that would, or we wouldn't pass it, but putting forth an ordinance that would either limit or would take away any limit?
I would take away any. And say yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because most took this town going support to 83.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, after they've been open a while, they'll realize, but.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has a certain place they used to go. I mean, I used to work in one when I first got out of college. I worked for Ms. Vance
Yeah.
there in and we had our customers and the one in the alley had their customers and that was it, you know, then. That's where everybody went.
Yeah.
On Friday or cash your check or wherever to get their liquor come from Cookville. She had a big wine. I think so, all the people coming out of Cookville come there because she had a big thing of wine down in the alley. That's where the bootleggers went. Because that's where they had just cheap whiskey down there. She had the expensive whiskey.
Mhm.
So that's the difference.
I'd love to see the sales tax for our liquor stores versus our grocery stores.
Yeah.
It'll be in your budget. In your budget pack, it's actually broke, I believe it's broke out in line item.
Yeah. Also, you have like
Your
Keller's.
drink thing.
he pays, where he has liquor by the drink. He puts in
There's
5,000 or 6,000 a year.
Yeah, there's actually a fee that he pays for extra revenue. I know that one is line item.
Yeah.
So all the restaurants that have, not your beer sale per se, but your liquor by the drink.
Yeah.
So Hart's, Farmer's Market out here, their Speakeasy, Keller's, I think the Mexican restaurant was doing margaritas, so they would be paying into that too. And so that's all of them together on that one line item.
So what do you need from us?
So on this, I just need, you wanna. If something comes from Mr. Beller that yes, it would be better to do an ordinance to clean that up. Do y'all wanna take that up?
Yeah.
Or do you wanna just leave it and let him handle
Discuss, discuss what he's,
it? Okay.
We wouldn't wanna leave it even if he says, because we wouldn't, like, we don't be opposed to, like, we've cleaned up to that tonight.
Alright. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
you got it.
Alright, motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.